Welcome to the DO Boxing Show. I'm your host, Dameon Okposio, and thanks so much for tuning in to another episode. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the UFC's parent company purchasing the PBC Boxing Series, the Premier Boxing Championships. There's been some rumors this week about whether or not PBC was going to be purchased by the parent company that owns the UFC. And from all accounts, it seems like it is something that's in the works right now. There's nothing out there that I've seen that says 100% it's going to happen, but there is lots of talk right now about the deal going down. And apparently the parent company of the UFC, it's called Endeavor. The CEO from that company has had several meetings with Haymon. And I wanted to talk about what that means to the boxing landscape. I think it's really, really interesting. For boxing insiders that have been following this, even for people that haven't actually, let me shed some light on the background of what's been happening in boxing. So there's been a lot of power plays recently. The major promoters in boxing in the past have been Don King and Bob Arum for much of the 80s and 90s. And then Golden Boy came on the scene, and there was Golden Boy, Top Rank, and then a lot of small promoters underneath them. Then Haymon came about. Haymon had a past in representing people in the music industry, and he brought his knowledge and business expertise into the world of boxing. He bought up a lot of contracts. He signed a lot of fighters, became their managers or advisors, most notably and most famously Floyd Mayweather. And he brought his business knowledge to them, helped them become better businessmen, were paying fighters a lot, and it disrupted the boxing landscape. A lot of people associated with promoters like Bob Arum and Golden Boy didn't like Haymon because he was changing up a lot of things that were happening. They didn't understand where he was getting all of his money from. He was getting his money from investors. He turned out a product, which was the Premier Boxing Championships, and they were successful. Initially, he purchased a lot of airtime, putting boxing back on free TV because the popularity of boxing was waning because people weren't able to see fighters on a regular basis like they were in the 80s, where you'd see these guys every day on television. You get to know their background stories, and you develop a relationship with the fighters so that when the era of pay-per-view came along, people actually knew what they were purchasing and would purchase the pay-per-view. You built stars that way by having them on free TV. A lot of the major boxing promoters just didn't want to invest that kind of money. They just don't want to invest in promoting in general. Like a lot of the promoters, they'll promote in the US market, but you wouldn't see a lot of those promoters promoting in the Canadian market. They wouldn't spend the money in the fringe areas to make sure that boxing had a feeder system to create new superstars in the future. And because of that, the popularity of boxing waned a little bit. Boxing is still and always has been around and is going to be a major sport, especially in certain markets like the US. So Haymon came. His goal was to put boxing back on free TV, and he accomplished that goal. He bought numerous spaces on networks, NBC, CBS, ESPN, Fox, and Showtime. A lot of people think that PBC was dying because they weren't on so many networks recently, but they did just re-sign a 3-year deal with Showtime in 2017, and they signed a 4-year deal with Fox in 2017 as well. Now, the reason that some of the boxing landscape has changed is because there's been so many other deals that have come about involving other networks and other parts of boxing, which has really changed the landscape of boxing. So Eddie Hearn from the UK, he has a promotional company called Matchroom. They did a $1 billion deal with DAZN, and that was for 8 years and 16 shows. And Bob Arum did a deal recently, and don't quote me on the number, I believe it was for $2 billion for 54 shows over 7 years. So sometimes it's a little bit difficult trying to find the accurate numbers on some of this information. But Bob Arum did a deal with ESPN, and his deal is doing shows with ESPN, exclusively doing shows with ESPN and ESPN Plus. And Eddie Hearn is locked in with DAZN, and Al Haymon has the Premier Boxing Championship still going with long-term, well, multi-year deals with Showtime and with Fox. So boxing is still here to stay, and it's you know, it's had a huge cash injection from different areas. Now, Endeavor, going back to Endeavor, talking about purchasing the PBC, yes, they're interested in purchasing the PBC from all accounts. Their CEOs have gone on record with different news outlets stating that they are making an aggressive push to be one of the major entertainment companies that are out there. So Endeavor owns the UFC, they own the Miss Universe Pageant, they own the Pro Bull Riders Rodeo organization, and they own Hollywood's biggest talent agency. They do numerous other things. They do distribution agreements for the NFL, the NHL, the IOC, the Olympic, the OIC, the Olympic Committee, International Olympic Committee. They are involved in numerous things. And I remember before when people thought the UFC was dying, and then they did the deal. So the UFC originally was bought by the Dana White and the Furtado brothers for $2 million. They pumped in $44 million before thinking about calling it quits, decided to stick with it, injected another $10 million, and then sold it to Endeavor for $4 billion. $4 billion. And they kept Dana White on as the front man. There's talks when if they take over the PBC Boxing Series, they would like to keep Al Haymon on as the front man, running everything, if Al Haymon decides to stay, if they do, and if he does decide to sell. With Endeavor, there was also rumors that I read and saw online that Endeavor was losing money. The people that bought the UFC group was losing money. That also is not true. The information is public. With the company Endeavor, in 2018, their revenue was $3.16 billion. So they were up 20% from the money that they made in 2018. And 2018, they were up 28% from the money that they made in 2017. So this company continues to make money. The majority of their debt is in acquisitions, which are one-time acquisitions like the UFC, buying different businesses. And it seems like if they do take over the Premier Boxing Championships, they would put it under the Zuffa group. And their plan, from all accounts, is that they want to make a boxing brand under the Zuffa Entertainment brand, because one thing that Dana White and the Furtado brothers have shown is that they're very good at promoting. And early rumors are that Dana White is not really going to be looking to deal with the sanctioning bodies. They would make it its own system, just like the UFC, where they try and make the fights that people want to see, which I think will be a great thing for boxing. Boxing is like the Wild West. It's open right now, and that means that there's more opportunity and more different avenues for people to actually have a career from sports. I think the more variety of things that you can do as an occupation, I'm not just talking about boxing, I'm not just talking about sports, whether it's esports or, the huge market right now for graphic design and videographers because of all the social media growth that's happened. I think all of those things are good things. So the sport of boxing that I'm very passionate about, the fact that guys can now have different options of where they're going to go, get paid well for fighting, or take more control of their career and decide where they want to be, I think that's a good thing. I'm looking forward to, Zuffa Entertainment doing promotion of boxing for their section, because I think that they're going to do a fantastic job of bringing some excitement back to the sport of boxing. And that's going to be good for all of the small guys, small promoters like myself, and people in boxing that have businesses, we're all going to benefit from that, from the trickle-down effect of people just being interested in the sport again. That being said, I'm going to end this video off saying I am looking for people for a sales group. I'm trying to build a sales team right now. I don't care about experience level. You will have to meet. There is an interview process. The guidelines are set out. It's commission based. So whether you have experience or you don't have experience, ultimately, ideally, what I would be looking for is somebody like myself, because I grew up in foster care. And from the time I was 16, I lived on my own looking for direction. I was always working multiple jobs. So whether you have a job or not, and you're looking to do something in sales, you want to work with a growing business, let me know. Send me a message. There's tons of ways to contact me, either by email or by phone. And I'm looking to build a sales team. So again, anybody, doesn't matter the experience, I don't care about the background. I'm interviewing anybody that's interested in doing sales for my businesses, and it'll be selling advertising, selling multiple different things. As I said before, Below the Belt Boxing Magazine has gone global now, so we're dealing with anybody, anywhere. And so you don't even have to be from Ontario in terms of sales. You can be anywhere. And, again, we can talk over email or by phone. And if you're interested in doing sales, I'm interested in working with you. So let me know. In Canada, if you're of legal age to work, just let me know. And you don't even have to come to an office or anywhere. You can work from wherever you're going to go once you become part of the team, and we move forward from there. Remember, if you have any questions related to boxing, send me a message through Twitter at DOKPOSIO, through email okposio@hotmail.com, and don't forget to subscribe to get every episode of the DO Boxing Show. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode. I welcome your comments, good and bad, and don't forget to tune into every episode. Thanks for watching this one, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Wow, wow, wow.